Okay, good morning or good afternoon as the case may be. Welcome to our Strategies for Coping with User-Generated Content webcast. My name is Sarah O'Keefe and I'm the principal here at Scriptorium and will be running this event. A couple of things that we need to get out of the way before we really get started. You should be hearing me at this point, and we did put that on the slide. If you are not hearing us at this point, that is not a good sign, so be sure to sort of check on that. If you are on the webcast, you are muted. We have actually a very large number of people on this webcast, so everybody is muted. We do encourage you to ask questions. Questions can go through the Questions tab, which you should see in your GoToWebinar control panel. I will try to address some of those during the session, and we will also have some time towards the end of the event to do a Q&A session. We are recording the webcast, but none of your information will appear in the recording. So the only thing that appears there is my voice and the slides or the information that I'm putting up. The Q&A period that we will have will not be recorded. So at that point, if we are asking specific questions, you can go ahead and do that. That will not appear in the recording that we put out later on, and we will tell you when it is that we are actually cutting off the webcast. So at this point, if you could just take a quick minute to check and make sure that you can find the Questions tab, that would be a good thing, because it does become kind of a pain later on if you suddenly have a question and then you go looking for it. So you might want to just do that at this point if you think you might have questions later on. Now, the other thing that I wanted to do today was I wanted to start by asking you via a poll whether you have a current strategy for user-generated content within your organization. So the question that I'm interested in is what are your plans at this point? I've put up the poll, and if you wouldn't mind checking off whichever one of these you think would be the correct answer. If you say no, it's not an issue, our content is classified or special. What I mean by special content is information that is seriously restricted and cannot be published in any way, shape, or form. My favorite example of this is nuclear power plant documentation. User participation on a corporate site, if you already have that, then that would be the second answer for you. If you have some sort of vague plans and hoping that you can get there, then you have an eventually answer. We are hoping it will go away is a legitimate answer. And then if you have an other kind of answer, if you wouldn't mind typing specifics in the Questions tab, you don't have to, but I would definitely be interested in seeing what kind of what kind of answers you have there, or what other kinds of things you're planning to do. So I will give you just another couple of seconds. It looks as though most of you have already voted, and then I will close the poll and we can take a look at what kind of results we get off of this group. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this, so last chance to vote. And let's take a look at the results. So there we have 8% say, no thank you, not going to happen, can't be done for our kind of content. So that would be the contingent that is on here that works for I don't know, intelligence agencies, the military, other kinds of classified things. My favorite nuclear power example, perhaps health-restricted information that is private. 15% of you say, yes, we have participation on our corporate site. That's about what I expected on this type of a call. You know, if you have this all up and running and it's all working and you're happy, then I suppose you would probably not be on this event. 62% of you think, yes, we need to get there. We're just not too sure what we're going to do about it. 2% want it to go away. And 14% said other. Let me just run through what kind of answers I got there. One person said, we don't use it but are considering it. I need to learn more. It's just around the corner. One person says that her past employer would say we are hoping it would go away. And then an interesting one here, our users participate, they provide feedback to customer support, and their changes get included in documentation, but there is no strategy that I'm aware of. So there is feedback coming back in, but there is not in a particularly strategic way. It's just, oh, we got some feedback, let's see what we can do with it. And one other person said we haven't addressed user-generated content yet. Okay, so good, thank you. And let's take a look here and talk a little bit about what we can do with this. I want to step back a little bit in history to perhaps 10 or 15 years ago, the olden days. In the olden days, we had gatekeepers in publishing. The issue was that publishing was difficult from a technical point of view. Getting a book published, or for that matter, broadcasting TV or radio, required a lot of equipment, printing presses, TV studios, radio broadcasts, TV licenses, those kinds of things, and therefore available only to really a chosen few. And by a chosen few, that would include many of those of you who are on this call, people who have access to the ability to broadcast or the ability to print because of your job. If you worked in a corporate environment, you could write content and you could get it published as part of the user documentation. That was 10 or 15 years ago. And that was okay, and that was fine. But, of course, now that has changed. With the rise of the web, the Internet, not to mention things like YouTube, what you need today to publish video is a $50 webcam, a $150 HD camcorder. I don't know if any of you bought some of those early camcorders early on, those things that sat on your shoulder and made you look like an actual cameraman because they were huge. And now they're the size of a smartphone. You can get an HD camcorder that's the size of a BlackBerry and looks very much like it. Publishing, if you want to publish content, if you want to publish information, you can do that via a blog or a website or anything like that. And the cost for that is somewhere between nominal and zero. So these three barriers to entry, difficult, expensive, and available only to a chosen few. You don't need, as a blogger, to know anything about typesetting. And some of us would argue that that's not always a good thing, but it is certainly true. Publishing is inexpensive, and even with the rise of desktop publishing, this began to go away. It became very straightforward to publish a little newsletter or something like that. And we no longer have publishing restricted to those of us that do it professionally, whose job it is to publish. And as a result, we're not really too sure what's going to happen. We're not sure where this is going to go, and we're not sure what this is going to do to our jobs as professional content people. It doesn't look too good, though, because it's pretty clear that as this information is getting more and more and more ubiquitous, and anybody can put information out, it appears that as a technical writer or a technical communicator or a content professional, we are now competing with amateur hour. And some of those amateurs are really, really good at what they do. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, from a corporate point of view, what's the worst thing that could happen if you are a corporation and user-generated content comes along. And the example I want to use for no particular reason other than that it's been in the news recently is United Airlines. Many, many years ago, I had a not-so-great experience with United Airlines, and, you know, if I run into you sometime at a conference, I will be just so happy to tell you all about my bad experience with United Airlines. And I've told lots of people about it, but my reach in terms of a one-to-one conversation about icky things that happened with United and why I don't like them, and of course, you could substitute in really any airline, because I know everybody's had bad experiences at some point. But my reach in terms of what I have been able to tell people about United is maybe it's 100 people, maybe it's a couple hundred people, but from United's point of view, it doesn't matter. I mean, they just do not care about the fact that I'm running around saying, you know, it took them 3 attempts to land and then they lost my bags and I'll never fly them again. However,